I spent over 1000 hours watching anime, and today I will use all this knowledge to give you the best anime recommendations possible. I started watching this type of media a few years ago, and since then I have watched a ton of animes. Some good, some bad, and others just straight up weird. And through this journey I learned something, and it was that everyone has different tastes. So, in order to give you the best anime recommendations possible, there will be a lot of different categories, like the best romance, the best action, the best sci-fi, and each category will have only one solo winner. And at the final of the video, I will reveal the one absolute best anime ever made. And by the way, I will try not to repeat any anime, because it would just be boring to say that the best action anime is Attack on Titan, the best shonen, Attack on Titan, it would be boring. So take that in mind and let's get right into it. Starting off with the best action anime ever made. And this one surely is a little bit controversial, but without a doubt, it has to be Black Clover. Now, I know that there are a lot of other action animes that are also great, but hear me out, the anime starts kinda slow. There are a few fights at the beginning, they aren't bad, but they aren't really good. But trust me, as the anime goes on, it just gets better. I don't know how that's even possible, but when I say that every fight gets better, it is because every fight gets better. At the final of the anime, you will only see breathtaking fights, with such a lot of things happening in your screen that you wouldn't even realize what the heck is happening. You just know that it is happening and it is great to watch. Now, I know that it is a long anime and it isn't for everyone, but if you are willing to put in the hours, it will certainly pay off. And if you think that Asta, the main character, is a little bit annoying at the beginning, it is because he is. But the man is really dedicated, and he will do everything that he can in order to get stronger and to get a nun. Because if you didn't know, that's the true real objective of all men. Now, before giving the next award, and before being killed by fans, I would like to make a honorable mention. And this mention is to a show that is also very good, that also has a lot of great action scenes, and it is Jujutsu Kaisen. If you didn't know, it is an anime that was aired a little time ago, and since it came out, it just became hecka popular, and it obviously is for a reason. The fights on Jujutsu Kaisen are also great, and the main character is overpowered. That's something that we all like. And for the best animation in the anime history, well, I don't think I really need to tell you what is the anime with the best animation, but alright, it is Demon Slayer, and come on, you have seen it coming. Talking serious, Demon Slayer, when it comes to animation, it is just on a whole nother level. No other show can compare to it, and it obviously is all thanks to Studio Football. That guys just make an amazing work adapting this anime. And when it came out, everyone was amazed, because that was first time that we have seen an anime so beautiful. Sure, there exist other shows that are also beautiful, just like Fate, but still, Demon Slayer can still be better. Now, apart from the animation, from the background music, sound effects, and etc., when it comes to story, is no Attack on Titan, alright? The story is pretty straightforward, but I'm not saying that it is bad, I'm just saying that it is simple, and I like it. If you want to watch a shonen anime with a lot of fights, that's it, go watch it, it is great, and every character is interesting, so it is really worth it. And before moving on, I would also like to mention Mob Psycho, because it is really that one anime that also has great animation. A different style of animation compared to Demon Slayer, but still a really great one. It is also really characteristic, so bonus points for that. It is really different from other animes, and the animation is top tier. Shonen animes. Who doesn't like to watch a good shonen anime? With ton of action and, well, character development, I guess? I'm gonna be straightforward on this one. The only shonen that could possibly win this is Attack on Titan. Since start, Attack on Titan was good. It was a solid show. It had good action, good animation, an interesting plot. But damn, if you have watched last season, part 45, man, you know that Attack on Titan is just on a whole nother level. This is moment when I should say, it really hits different. It is just now on the last season that we see the masterpiece that Attack on Titan is. My man had it all planned since the beginning, and we didn't know anything. But when talking about shonen animes, you know that the honorable mention will need to go to Hunter x Hunter, because after all, it is also one of those animes that really hits different. I myself just watched Hunter x Hunter a little while ago, and yes, it definitely lived up to the expectations. A lot of people said that it was great, and it indeed was great. It starts slow, not gonna lie. The start, I'm gonna be honest, the start is boring. My Hero Academia started better, but as story progresses, it's like Black Clover. It just gets better and better, and also darker and darker. I wasn't expecting that at first, because the show is very light at the beginning. And yeah, the story is interesting, there are a lot of character development, overall, just a great shonen. So now, for the Seinen Anime. I had a little bit of trouble deciding who would win this category, because after all, it is a broad one. There are a lot of Seinen animes, and they all are different. But I needed to pick one, and that one was Parasite. Parasite is that one anime that I didn't really expect much, but it really was good. A lot of things that I wasn't expecting happened, and overall, it is just a solid seinen anime to watch. Furthermore, the soundtrack, oh man, that soundtrack, that music, it's just amazing. It definitely is one of the best original soundtracks that I have ever heard. And when you are watching the anime, and that one soundtrack starts playing, it is just an incredible experience. It's worth mentioning that there are some graphic scenes, by the way. And the next category is dark animes. But before that, I would like to give a honorable mention to my great bald man. You know the One Punch Man. This one is very different from Parasite, but when it comes to seinen animes, it is also one of the best. As the title says, it is basically about a bald guy that can one punch basically anything. So the show mostly revolves around comedy. But even the fights, and there are also a lot of them, are great, because it isn't always the protagonist that is fighting, but even when the protagonist is fighting, the fights are amazing, because let's be honest, the animation is also great. At least the animation of the first season. The animation of the second isn't that good, but well, if you loved first season, it is still worth to watch the second. And now, before Saitama is late to do his groceries, let's talk about who won the dark category. And when I'm talking about dark animes, I'm referring to animes that have graphic scenes, that have blood and things like that. And on this one, I really didn't have to think much. Hellsing Ultimate is the way to go. A friend of mine told me about this anime a year ago or so, and I really wasn't prepared to what I was going to see. As you can imagine, there are a lot of dark scenes, but damn, the anime is great. If that is what you are looking for, fights, blood and things like that, really, Hellsing Ultimate is the way to go. Every episode, there are a ton of action scenes, and the protagonist is an overpowered vampire. And please, if you might, allow myself to highlight the word overpowered, because damn, that guy could easily, but easily, solo the entire Attack on Titan universe. Really, since start, he's already overpowered. But as you go through watching the anime, it just gets crazy, really. And now, I would love to give the honorable mention to another great anime, Devilman Crybaby. This one was made by Netflix, and it was clearly made to an adult audience, so take that in mind. Not gonna lie, there are some things on this anime that I really wish I didn't see. But one thing still remains true, the anime is great. There certainly are a ton of things that you don't see in any other anime, because after all no one is crazy enough to show it. This show certainly isn't for everyone, but if it is for you, then you would love it, because this show breaks so many boundaries. I just couldn't let it out of this list, it really deserves it. And by any case, do you know who deserves to be the best romance anime ever made? Well, I wish you don't, because I'm really scared to talk about this one. The romance gang is a dangerous one. I don't know what may happen to me, but here I go. The Pet Girl of Sakura So. Now, is it really the best romance anime? Yes, it is. Although, I'm gonna admit, this was one of the first animes that I have ever watched, so I may be kinda biased, but it is still good nonetheless. What do you need for a romance anime to be good? In my opinion, you need 3 things. 1. Romance. 2. A cute girl. And 3. Comedy. And this anime have it all. The girl is hella cute, no questions asked. The comedy, this is subjective, but I really found it funny. And the romance is there. Unfortunately, there isn't a second season, so if you want to know how story ends, you really will need to read the manga. And now for the honorable mention. This was a tough one. There are a ton of romance animes that I love, but I needed to choose one, and just one. So I chose Bunny Girl Senpai, and I don't regret it. Bunny Girl Senpai is one of the best romance animes, and the start is really powerful. It probably is the romance anime with the best start. I obviously will not tell you what happened, but I will say that I might have cried a little. Just a little. If you have watched the anime, you know what I'm talking about. And if you didn't, I do believe that you really should consider watching it, because I'm pretty sure that it is an anime that will stay in your memory. And, bonus point for a bunny girl suit in first episode. Now, we cannot talk about romance animes if we don't talk about comedy animes. So, what is the best comedy anime ever made? Well, Spy X Family. Oh, sorry. Spy Family. I didn't pronounce the X, I swear. I'm obviously kidding, but be careful. Don't say the X, or you may encounter some furious people on your path. Now, let's talk about what really matters. Spy Family is great. But why are you recommending an anime that didn't even finish yet? Well, because it is great. That's right, the anime didn't even finish yet. But I can already say that it is the best comedy anime ever made. Now, you could argue that I only like this anime so much because I didn't really know how an happy family looked like. But no, that's completely wrong. The only reason why I love this anime, Anya, it's because of Anya.
Anyaを知ると世界が平和に。Anya、ピーナッツが好き。人参は嫌い。
I could almost say that girl carried the anime alone, but I would be lying. Lloyd and Yor are also great characters. And now that Spy Family won this category, I would like to mention an anime that is really different from it. And I'm talking about Prison School. I do believe that Prison School is heavily underrated. It indeed has a ton of ecchi, and I'm talking a ton of unnecessary ecchi, but it kinda is part of the anime. I will start by saying that if you want to beat your fears and surpass your limits, the best way to do so is by watching Prison School in public. Now, you could be arrested, and I'm almost talking serious, so be careful. It was really a pain to watch this anime, and I needed to be very careful, but I must admit, the comedy of this anime is great. It is awesome. It is one of the best comedies that I have ever seen. And if you, perhaps, don't mind the ecchi, then try to watch this anime. Try watching 2 episodes or 3. If you don't like it, drop it. It isn't for you. But if you do like it, you probably will love it. And now, let's add a little bit of spice. Let's talk about what is the best drama anime. There are a ton of different drama animes. After all, it is also broad genre. But for this one, the winner has to be Guilty Crown. The story of Guilty Crown is really interesting. It all happens in a post-apocalyptic world, and our main character gets a special power that no one else has. And, not spoiling, but some pretty interesting things will happen. And the final of the anime is really tough as well. What matters is that a lot of unexpected things end up happening. There are a lot of character development through the anime, and there is also a little bit of romance. Just a little. I really think it deserves the best drama anime. But there is also other anime that I would like to mention, that is an anime that I also love. It is Tokyo Revengers. The author of this story took something that already exists, that is returning from the death. We have already seen it in animes like Re:Zero, and it mixed it up with gang wars. The story follows our little crybaby Takemichi, as after being killed, and after discovering the power that he has, tries desperately to find life of the person that he loves. And you might think, alright, he can return from death, right? Well, not actually. He can go back in time. But that's an overpowered power, isn't it? Yeah, it is an overpowered power. But unlike what it looks like, even with that power, it will be hard to save the person that he loves. Because after all, he's weak. And in order to save her, he needs to fight against very powerful people. The dynamic of this anime is really different. And until now, we only have 1 season. But I can almost guarantee that something more is going on. I don't want to spoil anything, but I do really believe that story has more to it than what it appears to be. And I will wait for a second season to confirm that. Even if it is what it is, the anime is still great. There are a lot of drama, a lot of beautiful moments, a little bit of romance as well, and yeah, just try it out. So now, for the best fantasy anime. It is tough. Really. If you know me, you know that I really love isekai animes. So I obviously will use the fantasy animes to recommend an isekai anime. The one, the best of all, which has to be Konosuba. One of the first isekai animes that I watched. After all, it is one of the most famous, and it really deserves to be. I have watched a ton of other isekai animes since then, but Konosuba is still the best of all. And one might say, but the characters are simple. You only have one girl that likes to explode things. And also a girl that is masochist. Yeah, but it works? Yeah, I need to admit the characters are simple, but it works. The comedy is great. Konosuba doesn't pretend to be anything that it isn't. It shows us a fantasy world, where our main character is weak, and our main character needed to work at normal jobs to survive. Kazuma didn't just start going and killing monsters at dungeons. He was weak, and he didn't have money to that. So he started working at normal jobs. Something that, if I'm not wrong, I didn't see in any other anime so far. After that, they introduce us all the characters. After being introduced to these characters that are simple, you could probably describe every character in Konosuba with one word, at least at the beginning, because after that the author takes the time to evolve them. But even if the characters stayed same since the beginning, the show, although a little bit worse, would still be great. Now, if the comedy isn't for you, if it just didn't click, then it might not really be for you, because after all, the show mostly revolves around comedy. But if you have fun watching it, then I'm sure that you will love it. And by the way, Megumin Best Girl. And let me mention another great anime, Mushoku Tensei. Still talking about isekais, you could say that Mushoku Tensei is a basic isekai. It is a show where the main character is hit by a truck and got transported to another world. When in that new world he gets overpowered, he gets some girls that like him, everything like other isekais. But you are forgetting the part that Mushoku Tensei is one of the first isekais. Even though the anime just aired a little bit ago, the manga was one of the first isekais, and a lot of other animes that you know were inspired by this show. But still, I'm not saying that Mushoku Tensei doesn't have anything special now. What I'm saying, my friend, is that even though a lot of other shows took inspiration from it, it still is one of the best fantasy animes ever made. It indeed has a quote-unquote generic start, but if you watch a little bit more after that, you will know that it really isn't a generic fantasy anime. Where the heck did you see an isekai anime where the author takes time to improve the relationship between the main character and his family? Family? In anime? Are you kidding me? In most animes, family just don't exist. It is almost a rule nowadays. You don't ask for family. Simple. But Mushoku Tensei is different. It takes his time, and I'm talking about quite a ton of time, to improve the relationship between Rudeus and his family. And talking about Rudeus, yeah, he's a perverted guy, but you know, his character is more than that. As the anime go on, and he starts meeting new people and seeing the world, he also starts improving himself, and he sees, well, I'm a jerk. And after thinking that, he tries to improve. He really does. Where have you seen an isekai where the main character is like, oh, I'm a jerk? Well, let's change. You don't. It doesn't happen in other animes. And it is something fascinating that only happens in Mushoku Tensei. And by the way, I know that I'm talking about relationships and things like that, but the show isn't boring at all. There are also a lot of action scenes, a lot of ecchi scenes, if you also like it, and comedy also. Comedy is great, especially if you want to see the main character being punched in the face. And since we start talking about ecchi, let's do it! What is the best ecchi anime ever made? No, it isn't Rido of Healer. Get out. So, if you don't know what Rido of Healer is, please don't search for it, it really isn't worth it, you will just end up getting some mental problems. Now, for the best ecchi anime ever made, interspecies reviewers. Fun fact, this anime was banned in a ton of countries. Why? Well, I don't really know. The anime is pure, it is just about a bunch of guys trying out different girls in every episode, and rating them. What is wrong about it? And yes, I'm talking serious. The whole anime is about a group of dudes trying to have relations with different girls and rating which girl was best. This anime really uses the ecchi, because it is an anime where you look at it and you go, yes, this anime is ecchi. It needed to be. And it is an anime that doesn't have ecchi just for sake of having ecchi. At least it has a reason to have ecchi, and it goes well with context of the anime. Furthermore, it is also a completely new approach to fantasy animes, where the main character is a hunter in a fantasy world. I honestly liked it, have a ton of fun watching it, so consider it trying out. And for the honorable mention, you know the deal, High School DxD. This one is like the ecchi anime, the base, the one that when a friend of you say, yo bro, High School DxD is fire, you go like, you son of a sus. It really is. The show fucking slaps, and if you want ecchi, it is the anime to go. In addition, you will also get some good fights, and obviously romance. Let's talk about sci-fi animes, shall we? Which one do you think is the best? My bet is on Astra, Lost in Space. Now, there is a good chance that you didn't watch this anime. After all, it isn't all that popular. But trust me on this one, it really is a good one. As you can see by title, it is about a group of people that were lost in space. How they were lost and why, that has to be with plot, and I will not spoil. But one thing is certain, the anime is really interesting to watch. Every character has a different personality, and after being lost in space, they will need to work together in order to survive. And to do that, they need to cooperate with each other, and their personalities will crash into one another. The interactions between them are really interesting. The planets that they visit are also incredible, really creative. There is also a survival aspect to it, and the final of the anime is also good. So if you didn't watch this anime yet, give it a try. And for the supernatural anime category, let's make people happy. I love to make people happy. The best supernatural anime ever made, Monogatari series. This one isn't even up to debate, we can all agree on this one. Monogatari has a ton of variety of characters, and everyone is hell interesting. I watched it for the first time when an anime recommended it. I obviously started by watching the movies, and goddamn I liked it. I loved it. The fight scenes are just incredible, but I will warn you that this is just for the movies. In the anime itself, yeah, there are action scenes, and when they are also great. But there are less of them. And how do I explain it? Monogatari is just different from everything. Monogatari has its own vibe, and if you like it, you will binge through it. Monogatari is really one of its kind. Has important characters. We have, obviously, the main character, Arararagi-kun. That guy is just built different, let's be honest. But you know what? There is a better way to convince you to watch the anime. Just watch this.
どうしたにゃ。
猫、僕が今から言う文章を復唱しろ。泣く泣くいななく七半七台、難なく並べて長々め。
にゃにゃめ77度のにゃらびでにゃくにゃくいにゃにゃくにゃにゃはんにゃにゃだい。
Are you convinced? Well, welcome to the dark side of the force. And talking about dark, I would like to give a honorable mention to an anime that treats a dark theme. That anime is Death Parade, and it indeed talks about death. In this anime, a bunch of people are gathered and tested to see their personalities. If they succeed, and being a decent human being, they can go to heaven. If not, they go to hell. The interesting part about this anime is that the people that are gathered are put before extreme situations, and these obviously cause extreme reactions. A lot of crazy stuff happen, and we will basically see that humans can almost do anything to survive. Furthermore, the animation of this anime is also beautiful, and the whole anime also has a unique vibe to it. You even have one great plot twist that I'm pretty sure you will not be expecting. Death Parade is an anime that really deserves to be mentioned if we are talking about supernatural animes. And talking about animes on the same vibe of Death Parade, let's talk about which is the best psychological anime. I will not make you wait. This one definitely has to be Death Note. By the time being, it already is a classic, and it really deserves to be. This anime is basically about what would happen if you gave a book that could kill almost anyone to a person that wants to change the world. In this case, this person is main character, and you could argue that he is villain of this story, which is kinda unusual for an anime, for the main character to be the villain. His intentions aren't bad though, he just wants to make the world a better place. And he will do everything in order to achieve it. The big selling point of this anime is outsmart. Just called Jojo meme. This anime is basically about one outsmarting the outsmart of the other. Our main character is hella smart, so in order to catch him, the police asked help to the best detective of the world. And by the way, they are trying to catch him because he is literally killing people. It is illegal. These two will use any means necessary to achieve their goal. And the result is an incredible anime that everyone should watch. Before going to the next category, I would love to give an honorable mention to the Future Diary. There are some people that didn't like this one, and I can totally see why, but I would say that you should really give it a try and see for yourself if you like it or not. Because when it comes to psychological animes, this one is also one of the best. And you also have one free opportunity to see one real yandere in action. I'm being serious here. The main girl of this story is an yandere, and she does pretty crazy stuff. Just be prepared. And by the way, we all know that a good psychological anime will not be so good if there isn't any mystery. So let's talk about what are the best mystery anime ever made. This one as well can be a little controversial, but I'm pretty confident that it has to be Made in Abyss. If you didn't watch this anime yet, you probably are like, what the heck? The characters of the show look like kids. And yes, they do, after all they are kids. But I agree with you, you are right. The design of the characters of this show are kinda different. You would look to a show like this and be like, yeah, sure, this is an anime for kids. But trust me, it isn't for kids at all. There are a lot of crazy things that happen in this anime, and a lot of graphic scenes as well. I'm telling you, although this anime is beautiful, and it's about a girl and a boy that descend into a hole to explore the abyss in order to find the lost mother of the girl. The abyss isn't a pretty place at all. It is a very scary one. And in order to make this place even more magical, Made in Abyss has a great soundtrack that I simply love. The soundtracks of this show straight up send chills down my spine. And by any case, do you know what other anime sends chills throughout my spine? The Promised Neverland. This one is also a great mystery anime, so I would also like to mention it. This story is centered around a bunch of kids that live happily in an orphanage. At least that is the story that we are told, but you soon enough will realize that things aren't really just like that. Now, this show surely is great if you love mystery animes, but it has a caveat. The first season of the show is great. The second, I don't really want to be mean, but the second is kinda trash. You can watch it and still enjoy it. After all, I have watched the entire of the second season. But, especially the ending of the second season, it was rushed as hell. They literally adapted material of 4 seasons in one, and it obviously went bad. It just didn't work. Despite all that, I still believe that it is a great show that you should check out, even if you just watch first season. Now, let's get to the real deal. The best main character, the best protagonist of animes. And I know I will probably be crucified for this one, after all there are a lot of great protagonists, but I chose Subaru from ReZero. This anime for itself is a pretty unique one. It has a really interesting concept, as I said before in the video, that is about main character that can return by death. A pretty powerful power, I gotta admit, but the author of story really did use this power well. It isn't just like, yeah, he can return, he just die and return, yeah, that's it. He learns, he gets powerful. No, it isn't like that. Even though Subaru can return from death, he still feels the consequences of dying. After all, he still feels all the pain. He still sees all the persons that he loves dying in front of him. He still takes the mental damage of dying. And the burden sure is heavy. Throughout the entire series, Subaru is always improving and is always changing his mindset. When he arrived at the fantasy world, because by the way this anime is an isekai, he was an immature kid. He just wanted to have fun. After all, he was in a fantasy world. But then he started exploring the world, and he started finding people that he wanted to protect. And with people to protect, obviously come a lot of responsibilities. Also, although having that power that is pretty powerful, he by itself, he's kinda weak. He is in a fantasy world, but he can't properly use magic. So he unfortunately needs to rely on others in order to save the people people that he wants to save. That's what he decided to do at the beginning. But after a while, he figured out that he would also need to get stronger, or else he couldn't save the people that he wanted to save. Too long didn't read. The anime is great, and I really love the character development of Subaru. And still in the protagonist category, I would love to mention Kaneki from Tokyo Ghoul. Although he didn't win this category, I still think that he is a great character. Ghouls are powerful creatures that eat humans, and after a tragedy occurred, Kaneki became a half ghoul, which means that now he doesn't belong to humans, but he still doesn't belong to ghouls either. Kaneki now doesn't have a place that he belongs to, which, if we look the other way around, it also means that Kaneki belongs to the humans and to the ghouls. This concept will be further explored in the anime, and overall Kaneki also has a great character development. He passes through a lot of shit throughout the anime, and he also changed a lot. If you watch Tokyo Ghoul you know, but Kaneki became a completely new person, 20 times or more throughout the show. And do you know what also changed 20 times or more throughout the show? The quality of the anime. It is really sad, but truth be told, starting at second season, as show went on, it just got worse. The anime adaptation was hella rushed, so you might want to read the manga instead. I didn't read it myself, but people who did swear by their lives that it is hella better. And now that we talked about protagonists, let's talk a little bit about antagonists, with the best one being Dio from JoJo Bizarre Adventure. Now, if you live under a rock, JoJo is a pretty weird anime, it is really crazy, and Dio as a character is really interesting. He is without a doubt the best antagonist of the anime history. That guy is like a bug, you can crush him, throw him out the window, he will still come back. Furthermore, we all have seen JoJo memes, right? They are great. And do you know what also is great? Berserk. So I will give a honorable mention to Griffiths from Berserk. He also is an incredible antagonist, and arguably he's better than Dio. I will not enter into details because after all I don't know if you watched the anime or not, but I can say that he did a lot of terrible things, so I believe that he deserves to at least be mentioned when we are talking about antagonists. And kinda similar to Tokyo Ghoul, unfortunately, the anime adaptation also didn't do justice to Berserk. You can start by watching 3 movies, and those are great. They are really well animated, beautiful, they tell well the story, it's a breeze. But after that, if you want to continue the story, you either read the manga or watch the anime. And honestly, you are better reading the manga, because it is one of the most beautiful mangas ever made. In counterpart, the anime is just horrible. There are a lot of CGI, and it just isn't good. Nothing compared to the manga. And before moving on to the best anime of all time, let's talk about the best movie of all time. And this is when I will talk about that one anime that make grown men cry. And I'm obviously talking about The Silent Voice. This is without a doubt the best anime movie I have ever seen. It tells us a really beautiful story, one that at the beginning you will hate. You will see some things that you will not like at all. You will certainly want to go inside screen and punch a guy right in the middle of the face. But well, let me calm down, the anime is really good. And honestly, it is one of my favorite animes. But there is also one other movie that I need to mention before going on, and it is I Want to Eat Your Pancreas. Now, the name is a little bit weird, it surely is. But the movie isn't weird at all. After watching it, you will see that it kinda makes sense. But honestly talking, you will not think about that, because you will be busy crying at that moment. I can't quite understand how this movie turned out to be so good, because they told us right at first second of the movie that the main character dies. And it surely was a bold movement. But it worked. If you want to watch a beautiful story, and maybe cry a little bit, make sure to watch it. My throat is honestly getting a little bit tired, so let's finally go to the best anime of all time, and it has to be Code Geass. I honestly couldn't imagine other anime being called the best anime of all time. When I decided to watch this one, I have already watched a ton of other animes before, so I already knew how this thing worked. But even with all that knowledge that I had, Code Geass hit different. It made me fall in love with anime again. If you didn't watch this anime yet, let me tell you, you are not prepared. And you will never be. Because there are always a lot of things happening. And the plot is really well written. If you didn't watch it yet, you definitely should, but before going, just know that I myself hadn't watched a ton of animes. Really, there are a lot of famous animes like Angel Beats and Evangelion that I still didn't watch. So if I made this video 1 year from now, this list will probably look different. And also take in mind that all this is kinda relative. Everyone has its own taste. So what is a great anime for one could be a trash one for other people. So let me know down below in the comments. Do you agree that Code Geass is the best anime of all time? If not, what do you think it is? And to end this video, hope you enjoyed, and well, I guess I will spend more 1000 hours watching anime.